Friends, I'm going to give a little video here about the so-called channel of God, the Watchtower. The channel of God. This is what they call themselves, and this is what they have 8 million members believing. Some of them believe that absolutely. They have in their minds that they are in direct communication with Jehovah God. And we know that recently this same so-called channel of God admitted that they were not inspired, and they admitted they were not infallible, or they admitted that they were infallible. Well, to be a channel of God, you would have to be perfect. You couldn't be making mistakes like they make. You couldn't be changing dogma and laws and whatever rules they had. You wouldn't be changing. A law by Jehovah is written in stone. Well, so with the channel of God, their rules should be written in stone, not changing every 6 months with an excuse that some light got brighter. You know, when Jesus said to forgive up to 70 times a day, or there's a channel of the Watchtower, would they even forgive one time? Not from what I'm reading, not from what I'm hearing. They are hard and dictator-like. This is how they operate. Hard and mean toward their members. Do they have compassion? No. That's not no channel of God. Are they kind? You can't be kind and sending people out of Bethel to hitchhike home because you're cutting your budget or whatever. Are they upbuilding? Absolutely not. Are they sincere? Absolutely not. They change every day. You can't believe them. Do they tell only the truth? No. You would expect a child of God to always tell the truth. A child of God definitely would not make any mistakes. If they are the child of God and have His Spirit directing them, they ain't going to make no mistakes. What they say would happen. Are they perfect? Absolutely not. They lie and connive and cheat just like anybody else does. Would a child of God buy stocks into companies like Boeing and Honeywell, companies that make weapons of war? Would a child of God use donations from the people to buy stocks to enrich themselves like the world does? Would a child of God be like Wall Street people? Absolutely not. Would a child of God ever be in bed with the United Nations? Absolutely not. And also, friends, a child of God would not be being investigated by a worldly country like Australia. A child of God being investigated by a worldly country about child molestation. Let me repeat that. A child of God being investigated for hiding pedophiles and defending them with a two-witness rule. Can you imagine Jesus Christ taking the platform like Jeffrey Jackson did and having to put his hand on the Bible and swearing to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, so help him God? Would Jesus ever be made to do that? Absolutely not. A child of God? No way. And would a child of God use some excuse to cover their tracks, like that generation of 1914 that they were talking about? And being it's over 100 years now gone, where they swore that the generation that saw the beginning of 1914 would not pass off the scene of this world. This world would end before that would ever happen. That's what they said. Now all these people of 1914 have come and gone. The Channel of God said that, but the Channel of God, as they call themselves, they failed again. They used this excuse called an overlapping generation. This is what they told the people to try to quieten them down because the natives were getting restless. See? And they made up something called an overlapping generation, which they can't even explain, and nobody can't even understand it in the first place. See, a lie don't make no sense anyway. Overlapping generation. What the heck does that mean? These people will resort to anything. That is like a little child getting in his bedroom and doing some homework, and he makes up something like that to get away from something that his parents told him to do. Overlapping generation. Never heard of nothing like that. But these people will resort to anything to cover up their tracks of misinformation and misleading the people. And a child of God will not have to be changing dates all the time about when the world would end. For example, they said it was going to end in 1879. That was Russell's gang. They also said 1914. They also said 1935. They even said 1942. And the big one that I'm a victim of, 1975. Did I forget any? Did I forget any? Please email me and let me know. Did I forget any? This so-called child of God, they have entered this world 10 times probably. This so-called child of God. It's really a joke, friend. A joke. I would call it the channel of how to make money. How to make money. You know, these people know how to make money up there in Brooklyn now. You got to give them credit for that. This so-called channel of God is the channel of money. Yeah, the channel of money. They know how to make money. They took these conventions, boy, and they mopped up. They held them all over the world. Yes, they did. And they were making money hand over fist, renting convention sites out that they owned themselves. Can you imagine that? Charging your own flock for using their own convention site that they paid for. You're charging them to come there and hear you blow all this air about y'all being the channel of God and all these little zombies in that site clapping. You're even told when to clap. The channel of God will tell you when to clap. And they do it too. Oh yeah. You know, clapping means in agreement. Say, I've seen some things where it looked stupid. Where a woman would sit up there on the convention stand and say, she's come back to Jehovah. She gave up her kids and everything. But she come back to Jehovah. And she's crying. Well, it looked like she's crying because she came back. She said she came back to Jehovah. Well, she wasn't coming back to Jehovah. She was coming back to the cult. That's what she was doing. But you're supposed to believe that the channel of God has inspired her to come back to Jehovah. No, they came back to that cult. They didn't come back to no Jehovah. You can't leave Jehovah, but you can certainly leave the Watchtower Society. You might stop serving Almighty God, yes, but you don't leave him. You stop serving, but you don't leave him. But you do leave the Watchtower. That's why the woman said, she's coming back to Jehovah. See, they're so brainwashed to think that they're coming back to Jehovah. Hey, it makes me irritated when I hear a grown woman get on and crying. She was crying out of, I guess, seemed to me she was crying because she was so damn unhappy to be coming back to this nonsense. Would a child of God say in 1879, in their Watchtower, page 8, say that the men of Sodom would be resurrected. Okay? And then a few months later, they wrote that they will be resurrected. Then, in June, the first Watchtower, 1952, they said the men of Sodom will not be resurrected. And then, August the 1st, 1965, page 479, they said they will be resurrected. And then, the Watchtower, June the 1st, 1988, page 31 says they will not be resurrected. And then in the Forever book, don't get the date on this one, but the Live Forever book on page 179 says the men of Sodom will not be resurrected. Then on the Insight book on page 985, it says the men of Sodom will be resurrected. Then the Revelation book, page 273, says they will not be resurrected. You know, I don't think they know what they're even printing. Now, there's almost 10 different changes of a belief there. The men of Sodom were going to be resurrected, and then the men of Sodom will not be resurrected. So many times they change their mind, as if they're deciding on whether the men of Sodom would be resurrected or they will not be resurrected. You know, friends, it's like a kid. A little child wouldn't do nothing like that. Wouldn't write nothing like that. I mean, this is like a bunch of little kids sitting around a desk and writing something. Oh, they will be resurrected. And then next year, they won't be resurrected. See, this shows what you're dealing with. This is the channel of God. It is? To me, it's a channel of mistakes. It's the channel of can't make your damn mind up. That's what channel you are. You ain't no channel of God. See? If you were a channel of God, the whole world would believe it. And they would know it. And friends, like I've always said this. What has these men up in Brooklyn, these 7, 8, or 9, ever how many it is, these old roosters that are bent over, what have they done to prove they are a child of God? This is what I want from the Jehovah's Witness sympathizers that might be watching this video. Tell me, what have they done to even look like they are a child of God? It seems like to me they're the only ones that believe that. You know? And they have said it so many damn times, I think they do believe it. You know, I always use an illustration that if you go to a Kingdom Hall, and we're talking about brainwashing now, repetition, you can sit there on Thursday night. All right, you're rocking in that little seat you're sitting in. 2 and 2 is 5. That's what Elder Jones said. He's speaking on the platform now. 2 and 2 is 5. Amen. 2 and 2 is 5. 2 and 2 is 5. 2 and 2 is 5. You know what? You get to believe it. You get to believe that 2 and 2 is 5. Yes. And you know you're gone when you say, well, I could have swore it was 4. I could have swore it was 4. But if they said it's 5, it's 5. You see how they work on the brain. They work on your mind. 2 and 2 is 5. Yes, it is 5. If you don't believe it, ask them. Ask them, ain't it 5? Just joking on that one, friend. But you know what I mean when I say that. Say, you have that repetition so many times, you get to believe it. Like I've heard this here illustration used so many times that they'll bring out from the platform that Sister Mary is handicapped now. She's on disability. She has become almost paralyzed. But you know, Sister Mary readjusted things in her life, and now she is pioneering. She's out there pushing her wheelchair, and she gets the householders' attention some kind of way by calling the homeowner. She'll call and call till someone answers. And feeling sorry for her, they'll start talking to her. Now, she'll go through all that. Then you know what the elder from the platform will follow up with? Are you doing your share? Are you buying out the right time and doing like Sister Mary? Are you buying out the opportune time to imitate her? Yeah. See, this is a guilt trip. When they ask you that, after they have drawn an illustration of what someone is doing out in the field service, are you doing the same thing? Yeah. See? That gets you thinking then, I ain't doing enough. Sister Mary was out there in a wheelchair. I got to find more time to put out in the field service. But this is what this so-called child of God has got people into thinking. This so-called child of God. And you know, friends, it is a so-called child of God. I don't see how in the world, because lately they have admitted that they're not inspired. Well, my God, if you're not inspired, then those 50,000 people that have died from not taking a blood transfusion, you died because some men said that. They weren't inspired by God. See? They were no more than Jim Jones then. 900 some died with Jim Jones, but there's 50,000 that have died from not taking a blood transfusion. 50,000. See? And since we're talking about this blood, friend, I'm going to close this talk with this little thing about this blood. You know, they're saying now that you can take parts of blood if your conscience don't bother you. If your conscience don't bother you, you can take parts of blood. See? Okay. Now here is the question I want answered. If you can take parts of blood, if it don't bother your conscience, where do they get these parts from? Where do these parts come from? It's got to come from blood. And we all know no Jehovah's Witness will donate blood, or they can't store up blood either. So being they cannot donate blood, then where do those parts come from? They come from worldly people. Yes, the same people that you say, you knock on their door this Saturday morning and you tell them they're going to die at Armageddon. And yet, you took part of his blood last year to save your life. You see how they are? You'll take old worldly O's blood that means your life, don't you? Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll take it if I can live longer. Yeah. But if I asked you or tell you, yeah, but it comes from a worldly person, you know what you'll do? You'll stop the conversation and walk away. You don't want to go there. You don't want to go there, see. You will not answer that question. Where do those parts come from? Now me, I know where they come from. Common sense will tell you. Comes from a worldly person. Worldly people donate blood. Yes, they donate blood by the gallons all over the country. And those parts are taken from their blood to give to a JW if it don't bother his conscience. So he can keep living. But I wonder if he ever thought, it's a worldly person's parts. It's a worldly person's parts. You see how this so-called channel of God are so screwed up that I wonder if they even thought of that, what I just said. They have all these people that are dying from not taking blood transfusions, but they can take parts. But the parts comes from worldly people. Yes. The same people you condemn. You condemn these people. They're no good. They're workers of Satan. See? And I wonder how they would feel if an apostate gave some blood. Okay? He gave some blood. And Elder Smith needed a blood transfusion, but he wouldn't take one, but he would take parts of blood. And you know where I'm going now. The apostate's blood was used for parts. That elder got parts of that apostate's blood so he could keep living. Yeah. Yeah. Yes, he did. He took the parts of blood, and the parts of blood came from an apostate. You think about that, friends. That apostate saved his life. Yes, he did. Think about it. See, that's the truth. That's common sense. See? Apostates probably do give blood. I know if someone needed blood, I'd give it to them. Yes, I would. Blood is life. Jesus gave his blood up to die. Okay? So think about that, friends. I'm going to close this little talk. I want y'all to send me an email and let me know, did you ever think of that? That the parts of blood could have came from an apostate and he saved your life. He saved your life. No matter how you twist it, look at it, you can't get around it. The apostate saved your life by giving blood, and you took parts of his blood and kept living. Yeah, you might live 30, 40 more years now because apostate John gave blood to the Red Cross and you took a part of it to keep living. But it came from apostate John. Oh, I ain't got nothing to do with that. Yeah, sure. You ain't got nothing to do with that. But I'm going to close this with saying this is a good example of what a child of God gets people into. He gets them into a situation like that. The same people that they hate, they condemn, they think more of Hitler than they do an apostate. And yet, some of them had lived on apostates' parts of blood. Yes, they have. They keep living on the same person they condemn. Think about it, friends. Thank you. May God bless.